and he has come here tonight to talk to us a little bit about their activities. The reason he's here is because I solicited him. I asked him to come because I had heard that the Rochester Cross Country Ski Federation was working with Mike and the kids at Edison High School. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty neat thing. I mean, if you could get kids at Edison High School out on cross-country skis, that's pretty amazing. And I bet that since going for a hike is a whole lot more straightforward than getting kids on skis and all the other stuff they need to be able to do that, it would really be a cool thing if, in fact, Genesee Valley chapter could engage with the kids at Mike's school to provide them with a little bit more of the kinds of experiences that we have had. You know, I think back to the time when I was first exposed to an outdoor activity like doing significant hiking. I mean, not talking about just going out with your friends and wandering around the block or something, but going out for a significant hike. And the kind of experience that led to really a lifetime of enjoyment of being outdoors. And because there are so many kids who really don't have that experience. I mean, most of us have had the experience through either our parents, scouts, some other kind of fairly organized group that we're privileged enough to have access to. There are a lot of kids who don't. And it certainly seemed like a great thing if Genesee Valley chapter folks could, in fact, provide some of those experiences to kids. Now, I'll let Mike talk a little bit about what it is they're actually doing. But while he's doing that, I'd like you to think a little bit about what it is that we do and how it might contribute to the program that he's got going over there at Edison. So this is going to be a pretty informal thing, so feel free to ask questions, and we're going to take it from there. So, Mike?
Thanks, Bill. That was a pleasant introduction, if I'm used to that. Like Bill said, I come to you this evening as a high school Spanish and Spanish language arts teacher. This is my 5th year teaching at Edison Tech, and it's my 9th year in the city school district as a teacher. I'm going to pull out my little set list here. So I think my plan for this evening is to have about a 30-minute chat at most. Maybe I'll introduce myself a little bit, give you guys some context of where I'm coming from, talk a little bit about my school experience, and then end up, eventually my goal tonight is to advocate not only for outdoor education in Rochester and for our students at Edison Tech, but just young people in general. I think Bill touched on a few of those things that are really close to my heart. But as Bill said, this, I think, is intended to be informal, so if something I say bothers you, or if you're a bit bored, maybe start snoring so I can change the topic, but please feel free to ask questions. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And if I can't answer them tonight, then I'm sure Bill can help me disseminate some maybe more long-term answers. So, I'm a teacher at Edison Tech, but that's not always what I've done. You know, I've had plenty of other jobs as far as things like retail or working in restaurants, but the most impactful jobs for me were doing things like guiding rafting trips down whitewater rivers in New York, like the Black River and the Hudson River. Currently in the summertime now, I help a friend run a small business, renting construction equipment and logistics of that, delivery equipment, things like that. So you might consider me a jack of all trades, but definitely a master of none. Why I share with you my experiences is because as a Spanish teacher, it's super rewarding for me when I can not only help young people feel better about being themselves, but doing that through the lens of enjoying the outdoors. I think it's important to share my background with you regarding teaching because I teach Spanish in a unique course that I haven't taught for very long called Spanish Language Arts. My Spanish language arts students come to us from around the world and speak Spanish at least as their home language, as well as English, and for many students, other languages. So I have the unique perspective of working with many students who come, for example, from the Caribbean. So if you can imagine what life is like in the Caribbean, I've never been myself, but speaking of the weather and speaking of hours of daylight, speaking of access to the outdoors, coming to upstate New York is a radical change. I think when we see the sun set so early lately, we can relate with how some students might be feeling with that lack of sunshine, for example. Now I think that a lack of sunshine or a lack of access to the outdoors could be a problem that not only my students have, but that's something that I think all students today have in common. So that's something that's consistently on my mind when I have fidgety, high-active, or high-energy students in my class that I have to consistently remind to sit down and to listen and to follow directions. So that's where I'm coming from tonight, trying to advocate for not only students who might feel awkward and closed in an upstate New York, dark, stormy setting, but also just for children in general. So maybe I could talk a little bit about my childhood, or my experience in school. For me, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Harry Potter series, but for me, I like to identify with Harry in the fact that I enjoyed getting out of the house. I don't think my experience was unique. I came from a working class family. I didn't always feel like I was seen or heard at home. And it didn't change much when I went to school. I think I was an active, fidgety kid who was always told to sit down, to listen to instructions, and to focus on the things that I was supposed to focus on. So it wasn't until friends invited me to things like ski club where I could really find myself and allow myself to be myself, to be active, and to be responsible, to have maybe $20 in my pocket for the first time and have to make sure that I ate that night and didn't spend it on something candy. So for me, I think earlier I was speaking with some other people, not only was ski club an important social aspect of my life, but also having a bicycle was something that I think a lot of students or a lot of young people can't really relate to these days. Being able to be on my own, being able to be mobile and to be responsible and have to be home by dark, and my parents not really knowing where I was a huge developmental piece of my childhood. So when I think of where my students are at now, I constantly reflect back on my privileged experience as a young person. And I think, like Bill touched on, a lot of students that I am in front of, or students in general, don't share that privilege at all. So getting outside is even more difficult, or maybe even more important. So really, my most defining memories, my core memories, were all made outside. I don't want to bore you to death, but my first experience in college, I was accepted into RIT in December of my senior year of high school, and by September of my sophomore year of college, I'd already failed out. And I like to say, because I was doing just about everything besides studying, the reality is I was outside. I was outside in the woods hanging out with my friends. I was outside skiing, which was the only class that I didn't fail those semesters. And I think a problem was that no one in my life, no one in my corner, none of my people valued that time outside. Even the people that I called friends were saying, hey man, what are you doing? You're failing out of school. You're just spending your time skiing all the time. What, are you going to be a professional skier someday? We all knew that that was not true. But I want to share these things with you because I wonder if the people in my life, if they had valued that I truly enjoyed being outside, maybe my career would be different. I don't have regrets. I really, truly love my job. I love the things I do. But when we look at employability of young people, I think the goal is to be truly happy. And I think as a young person, I was taught that if I wasn't being productive, if I wasn't in class doing things that on paper looked good, then I wasn't doing the right thing. And it's taken me a while in my journey in adulthood to realize that maybe those were good things for me, and maybe those experiences have made me who I am and helped me make the decisions that I make today. So I'm constantly looking at the curriculum, I'm constantly looking at the things that we do with young people through that lens. I want to give young people the opportunity to be seen, to be heard for who they are, and I have the unique experience to be able to be the chaperone for the Edison Tech Outdoor Club, which hopefully we can continue to do some of those things. So like I touched on before, Edison Tech has a beautiful rainbow gamut of students who come to us from all across the world speaking many different languages. I have the unique experience of teaching mostly students who quite literally come from the Caribbean. Students who studied in grade school in the Caribbean, students who are coming to us in the past few years to the United States. And a lot of them say things to me like, "Mister, you know, there are no hallways in my school. We don't have windows on the school classrooms." Not because these schools are underfunded or underprivileged, but because the weather allows for the architecture to be that way. You know, I have many students who I will see in the hallway and I'll say, "Hey, you know, you really should be in class right now. You should be enjoying your education." They'll say things to me like, "You know, mister, when I lived in Puerto Rico, I could go to the courtyard and I could sit by the fountain if I wasn't having a good day, or I was allowed to be outside. We had recess." You know, it's really hard for me to accept that my 14 to 18-year-old students have one lunch period a day where they're not allowed to go outside. The building that I work in, although I'm blessed to have a building filled with technology, filled with welding labs and automotive labs and masonry rooms and carpentry, I don't want to keep using the word labs, excellent facilities. But I don't see the sunlight between the hours of 7 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. And I know my experience is not unique in that sense. So a lot of my students are really frustrated. They think that that's the norm for young people around here. They think that being outside is a privilege, not a right. I genuinely think that we live in a beautiful, beautiful city. How many other cities can boast waterfalls, plural, can boast rivers and lakes? How many wonderful trail systems are we currently linking together in our city? And most of the students in our district don't take advantage of those resources or those materials. So our work in the Outdoor Club has been not only to help students access those places and spaces, but to also give them the tools and the knowledge on how to recreate safely and how to enjoy the outdoors that is right in front of them, that's literally free, that they not only have a right to, but should have the privilege of being able to do these things. Coming from an academic standpoint, we talked a lot about the expectation for students to sit still, much like you guys are. You guys are wonderful students right now. I'm feeling a little understimulated in this environment because it's usually a bit more active, I should say. So you guys obviously are excellent students. But I am constantly reminding my students to do things like sit in assigned seats and participate in the way I want to and follow the lesson the way I've designed it. And the more I open my eyes, the more I see that students are gifted in many different ways. And a lot of my most active students are just that, they're understimulated. Culturally, they might be coming from an environment where this is unsettling to them. Physically, students are coming from an environment growing up in a household with several siblings. And sitting up straight and being quiet is something that they only have to do in school. So, enter the Edison Tech Outdoor Club. We were chatting earlier about some unique hurdles that the Edison Tech Outdoor Club has to navigate. But I think I'm very blessed to have places and spaces like this to connect with a lot of people who have a lot more knowledge and a lot more experience than I do. So I'm really looking forward to continue to plan maybe some bigger trips with the kids and maybe some scary things. We were speaking about another club that goes to Canada for one of their trips. For me, that's terrifying. Going across the border with even only 10 students seems quite ridiculous. But I think that those are some goals that we can look forward to. Kind of getting back on track. What am I here to do today? Why are you hearing me? Well, yes, Bill did solicit my participation tonight, but really I'm here as an advocate, not only for our outdoor club, but I hope everyone can leave tonight maybe thinking back on their core memories or their opportunities they had as young people, or maybe not as young people. The privileges you had when you were younger to help you enjoy the things that I know we all enjoy. I think that Edison Tech Outdoor Club has a lot of needs, but I think that that is part of the beauty of those challenges, is meeting people along the way. You know, we have equipment needs, but like Bill said, there are plenty of people around. We were talking about our bikes tonight, we were talking about skis, or our community bikes tonight, we were talking about skis earlier. The opportunities are there. I think we just need to make sure that we link together and can coordinate these things. Beta is a big one. I think beta is sort of a buzzword. I heard some gentlemen talking tonight about which maps you should use in the Catskills versus which map publisher you should use, rather, in the Catskills versus the Adirondacks. I mean, these are things that I, as a young adult, am struggling with. I don't know how to recreate safely and legally in New York. I wonder if those designs are there on purpose. I have to continue to research and teach myself what resources to use, when to use them, what questions to ask, and when to ask them, so that I can do things safely and legally, because we have the opportunity of having public land for everyone, but it isn't exactly advertised how to recreate there. So I think beta is something that we're consistently asking for help on. I would love to open up modes of communication for people to say, hey, you know, there's this project that's connecting all of the rail trails in Rochester. Oh, there's this project where they're trying to connect 3 colleges in the area so there can be walking paths that are lit and safe and cleared. Do you know anyone who would like to volunteer in trail building? Sure, I've got 10 kids after school who are dying to get outside and play in the dirt, right? Oh, your club went to this place. Oh, they have cabins there that are reasonably priced. Oh, this is an excellent activity for younger people who might not be athletically inclined. Those are the kind of things, those are the kind of conversations that I hope to continue to start having, especially in a room full of ladies and gentlemen such as yourselves. Of course, volunteers. Taking children places takes volunteers. If there are people out there that are itching to help out in their community, contact your local schools. Edison Tech, we'd love to take you on a trip. If you want to give back to your communities by helping young people learn how to recreate safely and responsibly, we could always use volunteers, right? We're really looking for community members, resources, things that can help people become that next generation of outdoorsmen, right? Not only so that students today can enjoy the outdoors, but so that their children's children can continue to enjoy the outdoors. I think it's important for us to continue to talk about stewardship as well. I think that as people who recreate in the outdoors, fortunately or unfortunately, it lies to us to continue to advocate, to continue to have that right. I don't know if you went to vote, I hope you did in this past election, but you might have noticed there was a, what do we call that? There was an amendment to a proposition, thank you. And I think the wording on that was very particularly, the wording was, let me rephrase that. I found the wording very interesting on that bill. If you did not know anything about that situation, it might have seemed like you were voting for more ski trails. I don't want to get into politics with you guys, but I think that it's important for not only us to be up on the politics of recreating, but also to help young people understand that importance. Because if I were to poll 10 students in my classroom right now, I would say probably none of them would argue that that was one of the most important things in their lives, continuing to be able to enjoy the outdoors. I think my ultimate goal is to make happy people. I think it makes me very happy to share with young people what I love to do, and I think that it makes me ultimately happy to see a community around that idea. I think I want to live in a country full of happy people that know how to enjoy the things that they have a right to enjoy. And I think that's why I'm here tonight. Hopefully you guys are enjoying happy, fulfilling lives, and I'm here to advocate that we continue to use the outdoors to be happy people who can contribute to a society that can continue to harbor beautiful access to fresh land, fresh water. Fresh land, that sounds silly. Anyways, I think that's where I'm going to finish my chat. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear. Go ahead. Would you like the mic?
I'm good. So we've got a lot of inquiries over the years to help out, say, local organizations or schools.
Sure.
But we don't want to assume we know what you want or need.
Fair.
We got lots of ideas, we have people to help. But ideally, what would it look like for ADK to help you? What would you like to see ideally for this to be successful?
Well, I think I said the word grassroots maybe 10 times this evening. I probably said the number 10 a few times this evening as well. I think my goals are small at the moment. My personal goals or my Edison Tech Outdoor Club goals are small at the moment. So I might envision, I'm learning more and more about your club